You're hosting.
Good morning and welcome to this morning's Berardi and Coke. I am joined by Carl. How are you getting on?
I'm doing a lot better than I thought I would, if I'm being perfectly honest.
You have a little bit of joy. Did you steal a bit of today's joy yesterday evening? Is that what you did?
Steal it, man. It's fucking locked in a bunker somewhere. This is more than stealing it yesterday.
Cool. Right. Okay. So this is the Berardi and Coke for West Brom away. So we'll run an intro and get into it.
Hi, this is Don Matteo, and you are listening to the Ought to Know Better podcast. Let's do this.
You look like fucking Brolin, you're a Leeds eating bastard. Look like some sort of fucking weird floating head. No.
It's a utensil player a bit, innit?
I mean, I feel a bit right, dickhead.
Nothing spectacular, really.
There we are then. I promise you there are some new videos coming, intros and outros, so don't you worry about that. I'm on with it. So we played West Brom.
Yeah.
Last season when we played West Brom at their place. Wasn't great. So when we come up against Corberan, he seems to get some joy against us. I think his sides are well drilled and so on. So in advance of the game, and we'll do predictions and so on the main podcast, but in advance of the game and in the build up to the game, especially in the context of what had gone on through the course of the week, the fact this was the third game inside 7 days, plus all of the off-field stuff with Jorginho and everything else going on, going into game, Carl, could you find any positivity?
You know what I did? I tried to, because I looked at West Brom and I thought, at home last season when we played them at our place at Ellen Road, they got a lucky draw. There was that handball that they scored their equaliser with, and I thought we dominated them in that game but didn't have any quality in the final third that, could finish them off. Going off that basis, I kind of went into yesterday, I obviously went 2-2 on the predictions, but I went into yesterday kind of thinking, are they a great side? Are they really a kind of a side that we should be fearing? I know we've lost, 4 influential players from the starting 11.
Yeah.
But of those 4 players, 2 didn't register an assist or a goal all season. And I think when you take the likes of Somerville and Rutter out of that team, you obviously do lose a lot of goals, but I thought there was enough in the team to give a good account of ourselves regardless. Maybe not a win, but I definitely didn't think... I still have the mind frame that West Brom aren't all that. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, Corberani kind of gets the one up on us here and there, but I don't think his teams played the kind of football that we should have been afraid of yesterday. I don't think they played in any way better than us. I think maybe they had ball possession and retention was probably better. Their passing it around from back to midfield was probably somewhat better than ourselves. It was very chaotic in the first 20 minutes anyway. But to say that, but to say that that they're a better side than us, I don't see it. I think there was enough on on the field yesterday to get a point and potentially get a win, which, with the chances that we're going to discuss in a while, could have easily happened. I'd like to think that going into the next game we're a little bit more confident because we haven't conceded. I think 6 goals in 3 games, regardless of whether one of them was a cup game, is a bit of a nervous time for any kind of fan looking at our defence. But I thought the defence, I thought the defence was actually, they done themselves a lot of favours yesterday in the fact that there was no goals conceded. We limited them to corners and shots from distance and hopeful shots. And I think if we're taking anything away from yesterday's game, bar a 0-0, I think the defence can come away with a lot of credit there.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So I'm just going to pop up the momentum there from my favourite stats site stuff, score that gives us this graph. And on balance, I think when you look at that and you look at the amount of possession, so they were very, very close to 60% possession, which is unusual for a Farke team to, even away from home, to concede so much possession. I think, on balance. So just before half time, is a notable element in our favour there. But I think on balance, I think that momentum, it is a fair reflection of how the game felt. They had a lot of the ball without creating much. We didn't have much of the ball, didn't create much either. It felt championshipy, if that's a word. It just felt like. So if we just focus on the starting lineup, then. So I know that we had a discussion on the main pod, and the four of us on there. I think there were only one position that was even slightly contentious, and the rest of it picked itself. So if we just go through 1 to 11, we have Meslier in goal. Well, that was going to happen. Bogle, Rodon, Struijk, and Firpo. Again, I think he's something that picks itself right now. You could say, well, I'd like Byram to start because he's available, but I think Firpo and Bogle, especially with the attacking impetus they give us, it's fairly straightforward. I think that's that's the starting back four, back five for me through the course of the season while ever they're available. Farke's going to start that if he can. Ampadu and Gruev in the middle. Now, we spoke about that, and I think we all said that would be the case. When it comes to Gruev and Ampadu together, I think there was an element where Farke had focused more on defensive solidity. As you said, having shipped 6 goals in 2 games. I've not finished my second coffee yet.
I thought that might have been it. All right, yeah.
Having shipped 6 goals in the first 2 games of the season, you're thinking, right, okay, we've got to do something. We're going away from home. All right, they don't have a glittering array of talent up front. John Swift is a championship attacking midfielder. Carlan Grant is not going to get you 40 goals in a season ever in his career. We're in a position where we're not up against an array of attacking impetus there, but they are a strong team, and there will be a lot of sides that go there and get a thumping because they don't stand up to them and they don't have the physicality. But when we look at Gruev and Ampadu together, is that too defensive minded, or is that balanced by how attacking the fullbacks are?
When you were watching, I think it's a very good question, to be fair. When you were watching the game, you kind of looked at it and gone, we're very, very, very defensive. At one point, we didn't even have the likes of Joseph sitting on the last man. We had 11 men behind the ball for large periods whenever they were attacking. The impetus to try and press on them when we didn't have the ball didn't seem to be there. And there's a comment in there as well. It feels like Farke was trying to play for a draw. Now, I kind of agree in some aspects with that comment that we got there. Where is it now? It's Arse Ripper, our lovely anagrammic kind of name there. For those listening on, he said Farke played for a draw, but by the looks of it, I do agree with that. But I also kind of look at it and go, how would we have set up going into that game had we won our previous 2? I think we'd have still gone in the same way. I think Farke is very... When it comes to playing teams like West Brom, like we said, they do have, like you said, they have players there that if you don't stand up to them, they will punish you. And I think we did stand up to them, but we lost a lot of our attacking momentum going forward by doing that. I did feel that the 2 at the back, you had Struijk and you had Rodon, and then Ampadu dropping in to cover the space in between them. Look, I'm all for that. But when you play that kind of way, when Ampadu picks up the ball and tries to recycle it, the movement in front of him needs to be 100 times better. the one thing I did notice was that there was zero movement. When we got the ball, like Dan James got the ball, like, who was that? I think it was Pirro won the ball in our half, brought it to the midfield, played it out wide to James on the right, and there was nothing in front of him. So what did he do? He killed the momentum because there was nothing there, and he brought it back again. And you could hear the frustration with the crowd as well. Even though it was an away game for us, the frustration could still be heard from our fans. And I think, like, I know we bring up Bielsa a lot, and what he did was just, it was unreal, let's be honest. But the movement and patterns of play ahead of everyone with the ball was always visible to see. But now we're at the point where we get the ball in midfield and there's nothing like that. Like, I'm all for players getting chalk on their boots, staying out wide. I think it's an old tried and tested thing. But if you don't get chalk on your boots, you're not playing wide enough and you're not stretching the play when you're moving forward. And I feel that when there's no movement, that gets eliminated straight away because they've gone wide, they're up there, they're looking. But for them to be impactful, we need to have them runners off the midfield, centre midfield, for Ampadu to play those balls, because we're getting caught out because we're recycling. They're gone so far up the pitch, and then we have to recycle it because there's nothing in front of the midfielder to play it to start a creative attack from the centre to be able to implement those wide players and not get caught, because it's not, I don't say it's negative football, but it just shows that they're not to me, it looks like they're not working on those things in training. It's last season we were saying, oh, get the ball to Cree, he'll do something. We don't have that now.
We don't.
So now we have to get creative with runs off the ball rather than, right, we've got one outlet over there, let's get it to him and see what he can do. We need the outlets to be running into space, receiving the ball with their backs to goal and be able to turn on it, to be able to start those wide plays if we need them, or down the middle. It's frustrating. But yesterday, those type of tactics work, and they work quite well, because we're not letting West Brom bully us off the ball. We're just basically going, right, okay, we're just going to sit deep, you try and break us down. We're doing what other teams generally do to us. Yeah, we did it yesterday.
Yeah, I think you're right. And you know, that attacking impetus, whether that's what they're working on in training or not, or missing that, I do think, and I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to Farke talking to Tony DeVigo and co after the game on pitch side, but basically he said they're a big side, they're a good side, they've done well against us in the past, and therefore we came with the defensive solidity in mind. Now, the unspoken bit, if you read between the lines there, for me, is and we had to do that because we've lost so much of our attacking verve and our, the swagger that we've had in attack. If you consider last season, and this is something that's been levelled at Farke as a negative, and I'm not necessarily saying it is. It was just an approach. Was and I'm gonna link this to something else I've heard in the world of football, and I don't want anybody to go, I can't believe Gilly said that about it, because I'm not saying it's an equivalence. It's just something that echoes. Last season, something that was said of Farke a lot is, well, it's just about the defence and midfield and get it into the attack and wait for them to do something magic. Now, if you listen to the way that Barca's squad spoke when they had Xavi and Iniesta and Messi, and the way that when Pep first took over, basically what he said is, I'm going to get you into the final third, then that's on you. And he took the shackles off. Now, he doesn't do that, interestingly, at Man City. It almost feels like he's restricting them, and he just pass, and try and pass people to death. We don't have the players to do that, and I'm not absolutely not saying that there's any equivalency there, but you do wonder if it was a case of, we know that we've got players that are better than any attackers in the league, so let's get the ball to them, and they will do something magic more often than not because they're so good. We were levels better. And I think that is one fair criticism, is that our squad was so good last season. Leicester's squad was good, Saints' squad was good, Ipswich went on an unreal run, but we had a very, very strong squad last season. So I think that there is an element where if you take Gruev out of that midfield and put an 8 in, and the only 8 that we've got at the moment is Rothwell. And I'm not somebody that rates him massively. I don't mind us having signed him if you've got somebody else that starts in an 8 role and he's there as a bit of backup and a bit, he's an acceptable squad player. Don't get me wrong. I don't think he's the answer in the 8 as a starter. But you do get a little bit more impetus from midfield from him. He's more willing. Gruev got through a lot of work yesterday, and he still leaves me a bit cold with that knock-kneed running. It doesn't look like he's moving very quickly. It doesn't look particularly mobile, and you want somebody that's playing in front of a 4 in Ampadu to be that mobile, to be that box-to-box in the midfield engine, and he just doesn't look like that. Now, he's still fairly effective, and the fact that we were solid speaks truth to that comment from Farke. So that's the back 7. So in your opinion, was there anybody in front of them that actually played well?
I was watching it in the obviously I was watching it in the pub because my head's up my arse now, like. But I was watching it in the pub, and there was a lot of people criticising Joseph and his lack of work or his lack of. Well, I don't know if it was a lack of anything really. When a striker is feeding off scraps, and let's be honest, he was feeding off scraps yesterday. How do they expect someone like that to affect the game? They were like, "Oh, bring on Bamford. We need a bit of mobility." It's like, yeah, but we've got a 21-year-old who's about as mobile, if not more mobile, than Bamford. I know he hasn't got the experience of leading the line that Bamford has, but at the same time, how is he meant to influence a game when he's getting balls knocked to him from our centre-backs and our centre mid, where he's not winning any headers? He's clearly a ball-to-feet player.
Yeah, he's a channel runner, isn't he? That's we should be playing to. I mean, Bamford's a bit more capable in the air than a lot of people give him credit for, I think. But he's still a channel runner, and we should be playing to Joseph exactly the same way we did when Bamford was getting success. Yeah. Is that playing him on the last man and then playing the ball into channels or into feet? And you're right. You lumping, especially when you look at the size. I mean, Kyle Bartley is somebody that we know quite well.
Yeah.
And if you lump long balls to a striker who's playing against Kyle Bartley, you're not going to get much joy through the game, however good your striker is, because all the defender's got to do is get something on it. A striker's got to be able to make something of it, retain the possession, or pick out a colleague with the ball. A defender's just got to get a touch on it. A long ball, they've just got to get something on it and make it difficult. Semi Ajayi is not a small fella. No. So lumping long balls in the air to Joseph, that's not going to work. The one thing is, if it's being lumped in the air up front, it's not coming back at us. Yeah. To be honest, I thought that I was quite impressed with Nonto's work rate as well, because Darnell Furlong is one of their most important players for me. The way that he gets forward, the way that he gets on the ball, and he did track a lot in that game, and I think that had been specifically worked on because he did. I mean, throw-ins aside, because their throw-ins are really dangerous. They've got big fellas, and Darnell Furlong's got a hell of a throw in him, and it's not even like it's just distance. It comes in like a corner.
It's a trajectory.
With loads of pace on it, and it's flat and low. So, I didn't know much about that Hegem on the other side, but I think from when you look at their defence, they're going to mop up anything that's in the air, and they're going to get it to their fullbacks and into midfield. I thought Malumbi had a decent game, and he had probably their best effort. It was straight at Meslier, but the build up from Swift and then the drop off. If he even slightly spoons that one way or the other, it's flying in, isn't it? It's sweet and it's gone straight at Meslier. If he slightly miskicks that, it's flying in. So I think I'm really surprised what you're saying there with Joseph's work rate, because we didn't see much quality from him, and that's not me detracting from him. we didn't play to his strengths, as you've said. I thought the work rate from all of them was good. Pirro aside, potentially.
I'm not saying the work rate wasn't good.
No, but you were saying there were people being critical of the level of effort.
Yeah. I've seen that, and I don't understand it. I like the work rate was there. Like their tracking was good. They did the job that Farke sent them out to do, so that can't be criticised. I just think the work rate in more advanced positions wasn't there for me. When we did get into positions where there was opportunities to play certain players in, there was a couple where we could have played Joseph in earlier. Even Joseph had a take on where he was played in by Nanto from the right wing, and he kind of cut inside and he had a heavy touch and Bartley won the tackle. There was bits and bobs like that. I just think when we were going forward, again, it comes back down to the creativity we're lacking. And that's a lot of what we kind of relied on last year. And now that that's gone, we need to find other ways of being creative in the final third. I think Joseph, he's going to be a good striker for me. There's no doubt about it. He's proved it in pre-season that he knows where the goal is. He had 4 or 5 goals and 3 or 4 assists or something along them lines. And they weren't against shabby opposition by any means. They were against better teams than we're probably going to face this season, but they played to our strengths where we were able to be creative because they didn't sit deep. They were on the same kind of buzz as us. They wanted to get forward, so they were getting caught as we were getting caught. But when you play against the likes of West Brom, they're going to be defensively minded regardless of whether they're at home or not. So we need to understand how to break that down when we get into the final third, and at the moment we don't have it. And I think that work rate and output is something that needs to be worked on. I'd never criticise players for the work rate when you come away from West Brom with a 0-0 draw. That's not something you can really like. But I think they need to understand that going forward, when they get into certain positions, that's when the runs off the ball need to be done. That's when we need to overcrowd certain areas of the pitch so that we can release players on a free down either side or down the middle.
Whoa, hang on a minute. Just back up a second. We can't be releasing anyone on a free. We've got no players.
Right, okay, right. Wrong choice of words. I'm not trying to give anyone kind of a cardiac arrest on a Sunday morning. But you know what I mean? It's there to see when we can see it as fans and we're looking at it. I understand that Farke sees it as well, and we're never going to be more in tune with how players do and training and stuff like that than Farke is, but we can see it ourselves that it's not there. The creativity in the final third isn't there, and that's down to tactics, but also an effort to get into areas where we can be more dangerous. We didn't have a lot of threat when we were in the final third with our through balls, we found ourselves when we got into a certain area, it was always wide, even though Nanto was maybe coming in, cutting in on the right to play in the middle to get those balls out. You know what I mean? And yeah, I liked how we played in defensive positions, but going forward, we do leave a lot to be desired at the moment. And you're right that even Gruev, like you were saying, he is very defensive minded, but I don't think we get the result yesterday without Gruev playing the way he was playing either, you know. But we need that creativity ahead of him.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. So just the last question in terms of lineups and so on, and then I'm just going to spin through some of the comments. We had spoken on the main pod about Pirro versus Aronson. That was the main element where really the side, we weren't saying the side was picking itself, and that in that specific area. I said he'd start Pirro, and I said I think he should. I still stand by that. In terms of your view of the game, was it a mistake to play Pirro over Aronson? Would you have preferred to see Aronson start, given the shape of the game once it came on?
I think a lot of Aronson not starting is down to how last summer went, and he's at the point where he just needs to prove himself. Now I get that he came on against Portsmouth last weekend, got a goal, probably could have won us the game. But you can't base bringing someone straight back in off that just because they've scored a goal. Like, you know what I mean? I think he's still got things to work on. He's still got things that he needs to prove. But when he came on, his effort was 100%. And the only thing I will say is there was a couple of opportunities where Peru could have played. He played Dan James in once or twice. He should have played it on the outside of James so he could overlap the defender rather than in between two defenders and cut James off. One or two of them. And I think Aronson probably would have done the same, but I don't think people would have been as pissed off about it because they'd be looking at Peru going, jeez, he's slow, he's this, he's that. And I get it. But when he played, like he set up Aronson for his goal against Portsmouth last weekend. With a nice little, he broke down the middle, received the ball, broke down the middle, played a nice little ball in. Aronson did the hard work. But we need Peru as a striker. He's not a 10. I get this whole arriving late in the box, and how many times have we seen that? Like, I mean, that's what's frustrating me at the moment is he's playing him at the 10, even though he didn't have. Well, it's hard to say he didn't have a terrible game, but he didn't have the worst game I've ever seen him play. But at the same time, we were just crying out for creativity. But again, if you bring Aronson on, where's that movement in front of him?
Aronson gives you the movement, doesn't he? But he's not somebody that is going to pick up a player that's moving if there's no movement around him. I think my concern with Aronson, so we know that Piro's a goal threat. For me, he's too passive in the game, but we know he's a goal threat. We've seen that. He's very calm in front of goal. I think Aronson is right at the other end of that scale. He's never calm at any point. When he's on the ball, it's almost like he needs to do everything at 1,000 miles an hour.
Speedy Gonzalez.
And he's not good enough to do that. So he either needs to slow his brain down or speed his feet up. The reason that I say I think we should start Pirot over Aronson is not because I rate Pirot particularly highly. It's because I think Aronson's shit. He doesn't retain the ball anything like enough for me in the centre. He's not going to find the passes. He rushes everything as soon as he's on the ball. He actually reminds me a lot of Tyler Roberts in that he looks like he might be about to do something and invariably it just breaks down and fails. And that means that we've just got people just picking the ball off him and turning, and you see a turnover and then they're attacking us from what should be a dangerous position for us. I think if you're going to play Aronson, you need to play him wider where he's going to be less dangerous to us. And hopefully more dangerous to the opposition. I certainly don't think it's right to play him in the 10. I really don't. He's not the right player for that. Unfortunately, I don't think we have the right player for that. And that's, we're crying out for a 10. We really are crying out for a 10. I think Farke's crying out for a 10. You look what the capability he had at Norwich, and all right, he had Pookie up front that was scoring all of those goals. But the role that he got Buendia playing, and all right, Buendia is a quality player. He would have been able to do that under many coaches. But the role that he played in that side is actually what we're crying out for. Somebody that can do that, and somebody that everybody around them is confident that they're not just going to lose possession. He retains possession and he turns over possession. He wins possession, which I thought Pirot did quite well yesterday. But he's able to pick a pass. He's able to put it in top corner. Farke needs a player like that. He needs us to go and get him some ammunition up front, and that for me is the important one. And I think you'll see Joseph come alive. You'll see Dan James and Nonto come alive. If you've got a player they're confident is going to pick him out. And pick them out at the right time. When they're making runs, if it's not, we saw yesterday quite a few offsides. If it's not timed right, they've just run offside, and then it's played to them, and it's like, well, and then the attack breaks down again. And the attacking players really need to be in a position where they're confident that when they're making those runs, are going to get picked out.
Yeah. I was looking at how we were kind of set up and all that, and one of the things I would have thought personally myself is when obviously we were away from home, we were playing quite defensive, but the changes Farke made were changes where he tried to win the game in the final few minutes. And I think for me, if you're going to do something like that, to go from how we were playing defensively to trying to win a game, I was screaming out for it. I was like, right, okay, if we're playing these wing backs and you've got Ampadu holding the midfield and slotting into a back three, I'd have Aronson in an 8 rather than the 10, because he's box to box. He has pay, and he'll run the fucking head off himself.
He will.
And he'll try and win the ball back, and he'll try and do all that. And I think at that point, I wanted Aronson in the 8, just ahead of Ampadu, so that Ampadu could clean up just behind him, but he's also got the reassurance that he's got another guy who's going to run the head off himself, like Dan James, playing there as well. And I would have put Nanto in the 10. And I would have left Dan James out wide, and I would have continued doing what we're doing with the wing backs. I think with Nanto, I've said it for a year and a half, 2 years. He was bought as a striker. It wasn't bought as a winger. Everyone that goes on about Nanto being bought as a winger, we were told we were buying a striker in Nanto. We weren't told we were buying a winger. And if you're buying a striker and you're converting him to a winger and you're struggling down the middle, play him down the middle. Play him in that 10 role. Play him just ahead of Aronson. And then you've got Aronson. He can split everything then if we're going forward. He can take it on, and you can push the back three of Ampadu, Struijk and Rodon up to the halfway line. And you can start pressing them a lot heavier. But the way we're doing it, we're trying to find a creative player in there when we've already got 2 that could do the job if we're going for the win, and you're bringing on Bamford and you're bringing on Aronson. That's clearly going for the win. And I think if you have a 10 there in Nanto who can play down the middle, you just play Aronson behind him. And then you have that creativity to receive the ball. Because we know when Aronson gets the ball, he's going to turn on it and try and run. So if you have...
hang on a minute. So, but hang on a minute. So if you've got Nanto in the middle and you've got Aronson behind him and you've got James on one wing, who's on the other wing?
That's probably a very valid question. Now, I was I can't really.
I don't know if you've noticed, but we've sold them all.
yeah, that is the thing. Like, but at that point, maybe you bring on Byram and put him at right back and push Bogle on and switch James to the left. You've got options there where you can actually do it. You know what I mean?
Equally, you could push Verpo forward and put Byram at left back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there is ways to navigate around it with the players that we already have. And I think if we're trying to win a game like that so late on, then just go balls out. They didn't threaten us as much as I thought they would in their attack. There was, like, granted they got a few good efforts in, but there was never anything that I thought was in any way troubling to us as a defence.
I've just seen, so there's been some back and forth in the comments, and I'm going to spin through some now, but I'm hoping this is Smarty just being a prick tease rather than some news I've missed, because Smarty says we're going to play our new winger on the left, and I'm not convinced I've seen any news on that front. I'm not convinced that's Smarty being in the know. But if that comes to fruition, great, because we need someone. Right, I just got to spin through some comments. So we have a friend of the pod and former Leeds United legend, Simon Johnson, in the house. Good morning, Si. So I just started somewhere people were saying good morning. So Duncan Harrover, good morning, boys. We had, I think, Aina. You can correct me if I've got that wrong. Morning, fella. Jay in the house. Morning, lads, doing God's work, talking about that shite. Thanks, Jay. We had a few people saying morning. Dr. Cox as well, regular. Morning, lads. Interesting podcast was said at 10:42, which, hopefully we've not let that down since, because that was quite early on. And Chris Frost says, morning, lads. Woeful performance yesterday. Not one player played well. We won't get promoted if we don't invest. Wednesday will be a tough test. Morning, Chris. I'm thinking of maybe challenging that element about not one player played well. I think if you look at, albeit Gruev slightly too defensive minded, as we've discussed maybe, but if you look at that 4 in that defensive unit with Rodon and Struijk and Ampadu and Gruev, I think they were all effective in exactly what they've been asked to do. They'd asked to be solid. And if you're asked to be solid and you keep a clean sheet and you give away very, very few chances, I think it's very harsh to say not one player played well, because I think all 4 of them had a decent game. Were you on that?
I like I said earlier on, I thought the reason we came away with that point was because our defensive play was actually quite good against the team that we always seem to struggle against for some reason. But I thought defensively we were quite solid. There wasn't anything in the game where I thought, Jesus, we could be doing better there. We definitely covered our men. I thought Bogle and Firpo getting booked within the first 20 minutes was going to be...
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be our Achilles heel for the whole game, but they actually composed themselves quite well and didn't dive in and didn't give away too much thereafter. I thought, looking back at that one Firpo got booked for, I'm not quite sure why he got booked for that. Now, I know there's going to be people in the comments, and probably yourself as well, but you're a defender, right? You played as a defender, right? If you're going for a ball that's bouncing and some guy is putting his foot up at the same height as you, that's a 50-50 to me. Now,
I agree.
One person is always going to come out worse than the other in a 50-50. So I don't understand how Firpo got booked for that. Now,
well, not only that, but if he doesn't go for that ball in the way that he did, because I don't think the way that he went for it was in any way dirty, malicious, dangerous, and I don't think that it met the threshold for anything that was endangering an opponent. I'm actually fuming. I'm screaming at him for bottling the tackle and backing out of it. If he doesn't go for it, he's got to go for it. So
he has to.
I agree with you. I agree.
Yeah, I think that's, when you look back at it and you see the replay, that ball is there to be won. They're both going in with their feet the same height. They're both off the ground. They're both showing the way their studs are. Everything exactly the same. Just Firpo didn't get there before your man. It's a 50-50. That's how they work. And I think when that happened, I thought, Jesus, this is going to be one of them games where Firpo's going to have to be like Bambi on ice here now and not fall over at some point and keep his composure. But he did quite well for me. And
just to add to that as well, there was a time when Struijk was out on the touchline, and there was another 50-50, and Struijk got there slightly ahead of his man, and his man caught him, and it wasn't even given as a foul. It was a throw-in. That's
it again. Consistency in
same
how
situation.
How he's judging tackles, and that isn't consistent for me, because if Firpo's getting booked for that, then your man should get booked for the lateness on strike.
Yeah.
So
but not even a free kick. That's the frustration.
Yeah. But look, it wasn't all doom and gloom. We did have a Pirro chance in the second half.
Oh, hang on. Let me spin through the.
Excuse me. Sorry.
The rest of the comments, and then we'll come back to that.
My bad.
No, you're fine. Fortis Alatus, that's a name I've not seen before, so welcome along if you're new here. Guys, the defence was great. Fullbacks for yellow card first 20 minutes. They needed to protect the entire game. I think that's fair. We just kind of covered that point. Viva Bielsa says, with all the chaos recently, I feel Farke was trying to install calm. It's a hell of a job on to try to do that, but I think that's a bit of a fair comment.
Yeah.
Chris Wall, morning guys. Good luck finding things to talk about. 90 minutes of our lives we won't get back. Hope some miracle 49ers get some players in. Fair.
94 minutes to be exact.
Vivi Bielsa says, we'll look back on this later in the season and say that was a good point. And you know, hindsight is a great thing. It feels quite negative because of the pattern of the game and the fact that we used to have such attacking impetus, and now that's kind of missing from the game. But I think there's a certain element of truth there that we could well look back at that and go, do you know what? Unbeaten at the start of the season. Now, I'm not getting carried away unless we bring in Messi and Mbappe and whatever else. I don't think that we're going to be trouble in the top two this season. But you know, we're in a position where I take the point. Looking back at that point, it might not be quite as bad as we thought at full time.
Yeah.
Blazed Ray's with us. He's gone into that game with the idea, no matter what, just don't concede. Well, if he's done that, he's gone away from home against one of the favourites to be at least in the playoffs, to be in and around, and come away with a point. So,
yeah,
if he's done that, fair play to him. Danny, Not Another Leeds podcast, is in Calimera. Don't know where that is. The all-inclusive bar made it almost bearable.
And that giant inflatable he was sitting on as well, probably.
Well, it's a 30-foot cock and balls, man. Selena was in the house. Ampadu and Greve is like comedy duo, Wise and Wise. We need some more coming there.
Yeah, they're very similar, but you know.
It does make a different point here, though. On a scale of J to Peter Crouch, West Brom were massive blokes, and yeah, you look at them. And, you know, I don't know how tall Joseph is, but he looked like quite an average-sized human up against Bartley and Ajayi. So I think that's one where we've already spoken about the fact he wasn't going to get any joy in the air, but just all over the park, they just seemed like big blokes.
Yeah, they're definitely. They definitely come across as a team that when it gets desperate, they're going to pump it long and put the big boys up front. They have that feel about them, all right. Even in their midfield, their two boys are quite tall as well. Yeah.
Dr. Cox says, Big Semi and Bartley are seasoned veterans. Leeds should be looking at Furlong in this window. I can't imagine we'd get him, but I'd be all over that. Now, I know that we've bought Bogle. Furlong plays at right back, but we need another full back. And regardless, so I don't imagine that we're going to go and get Furlong because both Bogle and Furlong will want to be starting every game that they're fit for. Equally, Bogle averages 21 games a season. So there's going to be plenty of opportunity for people to get in. But equally, that means then that Firpo and Byram are left backs. And then you'd have Furlong and Bogle on the other side. So I would be all over that because I think he's an effective player, certainly at this level. We're going to ask you about transfers. We don't know where we're going. We don't know what we're getting. There's just no point going all over it again.
Just before you go on to that one, Greta Steinson basically was asked by Tony Dorigo what's in the pipeline, and he basically turned around to Tony Dorigo and said, "I'm telling you nothing. We're keeping it all in house." So if Tony Dorigo's not getting anything out of the club, what are we meant to do?
Yeah.
No one is.
Absolutely.
No one is.
Yeah, I did listen to that. Was that on the Don't Go to Bed Just Yet? Or was it the official Leeds?
Square Ball. It was their new segment.
The West Stand one, yeah.
The West Stand one, yeah.
Yeah, I did hear. I don't think I finished the pod, but I did hear him talking about that, and because I think he afterwards he went, and you know what? Fair play. They're not letting anything go. Fine, just crack on and get somebody in. That's the thing. Get them in.
Exactly. Just get them in.
So Lena makes a point here. Sad to see Joseph having the same struggles as Bamford does on a scraps day. I really hope that Joseph doesn't start getting the heat that Bamford does when he's got nothing to work off. And this point was made a few times in the comments that I did see, but it was so many times that I won't be able to pop up everybody's comments on it. Yeah. Being in a position where a striker is feeding only off scraps, especially when you set up defensive-minded and you're just looking to make sure that you come away with something. I can't remember who said it, but with a fairly famous quote of "nothing in football is given to you except a draw." Well, we went and started off with a draw and finished the game with a draw. So it was a challenging, tough day. Just to reflect on what was said in pub while you were there about the work rate, I'm rejecting that out of hand. He worked hard, but he didn't have much to work on. It's similarly to Bamford, but that does bring us on to a point that Smarty made. Joseph had that half-stone Donkey Perot playing behind him. Bamford had Aronson. Now, I don't think that's an upgrade. But the point there was made off the back of this one, that is Matt Leeds, who's been with us a few times, morning Matt, or afternoon, evening, whatever time it is in Australia where he is. Joseph had 0 dribble attempts all game, Bamford had 2 in 11 minutes, so it's part Joseph movement and the service, which I do think is a fair comment, but at the same time, you can only work on what's going on, and their defence was tiring, all right. Bamford looks like he's still coming back from injury. Whether he's ever going to get back to the position of, the pace that he had and the ability to put himself about or not, I'm not certain where his physiology is going to allow him to get to this season. But from a perspective of the movement and the service and so on, we know what to expect from Bamford. And for me, he's falling a bit short of that at the moment. But equally for me, Joseph wasn't. So he might have had 0 dribble attempts, but the number of runs and the channels that he was pushing and occupying the defence pretty much on his own, it was very unusual for anybody to get more advance of Joseph.
Yeah.
Where do you like, if you look at how the shape of the game went once we brought Bamford on for him, is there any criticism either way for either of them?
Like I said earlier, I don't think you can criticise to the extent that people want to. I think they're looking for a scapegoat sometimes when they say, oh, he's done this, and like Matt Leeds said there, it's like he had 0 dribbles and Bamford had 2. It's like how we were playing didn't allow Joseph to get into the positions to have those dribbles, and he did. Like, he had 1 or 2 bright sparks where he was playing well, and he was trying to get on the ball and he was trying to influence the play from the front. But there was, again, you can't get a 21-year-old or 20-year-old who's never led the line for a professional team before and expect them to come in
or even started in the league until this season
or even started in the league, and to criticize him to the point where you're going, oh, he didn't do this and then Bamford did this when he came on. It's like, yeah, but look how the team was playing around Joseph before he came off, and look how the team started playing a little bit more expansive when Aronson and Bamford came on, because he was going for the win, whereas early doors we're closing shop and we're just going to make sure that we get to a point where we're 0-0, and if it's like 10 minutes to go, whatever, we're going to try and go for a little bit. And when you change the game that way, or the style of play that way, then obviously a player that comes on who's fresh is going to have the better opportunities to get on the ball and potentially dribble past players, or stuff like that, because we're actually going for it as opposed to sitting back. We're going to be defensively sound today. If we can nick a win at the same time, happy days. But that's how we played up until the point where Joseph went off. And to be critical of him it's your right as a fan and a supporter, and if you're watching the game, it's your right to be critical. But I think being critical of him so early on, I think is not going to be good long term, because we know how some Leeds fans can get on Twitter and on Instagram and social medias, and again, players see that. And if you want to go and have a crack at Joseph, man, that's entirely your prerogative. You have every right to do it, but just bear in mind that can have a detrimental effect on performance outside of that. Like, he can be looking at that going, oh, what do I need to do more? And if he's doing what he's told and he tries to do more, and then people see him trying to do more and it's not working for him, then they're going to criticize him for that, and then it's a snowball effect. And that's what happened to Bamford as well. Like, it's exactly the same process that happened with Bamford. Give the guy a chance, for God's sake.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just last couple of comments then. So as Mukhtar said to Loza Fox, suck your mum, because the only professional footballer in our comments has said, bang on, Gilly, soul destroying when you keep making runs when you have very little confidence the ball is going to arrive. Yeah, I mean, we are in a position, and I'll also say this is a particular game for Cy Johnson that he looks out for, isn't it? Because the area he comes from and the side he played for. So, I think that was one of the points I was making, is if you don't have the confidence that somebody's going to pick you out and you're making those runs, going back to the point you've just made on Joseph, is he might make loads of runs, but if nobody ever picks out the runs with the right pass, with the right weight on it at the right time, all that work just goes unseen. Because especially in a away game, and especially when the vast majority of people are watching it on telly, the camera will follow ball. You don't see all the runs that, when we've spoken about the Bamford movement and the occupying defence, but we've spoken about Click before as well, with the movement that he had in midfield and knowing where to be and all of those things. I would kill for a prime Click to be in this team, because he would be immense. So, being able to have that movement going on in front of the defensive five, let's say, where I'm thinking of Ampadu or Calvin as it was behind Click, and making sure that you not only have you got that movement, but you've also got players that are able to pick out the runs. It's absolutely critical. And in the end, as an attacker, regardless of how professional you are and how experienced you are and whatever else, as an attacker, if you're not being picked out, eventually you stop making the runs, and then we are even more predictable as a side. And it might be hard working, but you don't have that bit of an extra 5-10% to go and beat your opponent. And in essence, I think that's where we ended up at.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Last comment, Dr. Cox. The best player yesterday was Pascal. I'm okay with that. You okay with that?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It just it reiterates our points about how Farke wanted to play when you look at the game overall, and a defender has won man of the match. It proves a point, like, you know, the defence was actually quite good yesterday, where we didn't allow them an awful lot, and the fact that a defender was named man of the match, and our defender, just goes to prove that that's exactly how the game was. Well, I say won, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Right, I'm going to spin through the comments that have come through while I've been talking them through. Do you just want to talk to the chances that we had in the game?
Yeah, I put up a comment on Twitter there after the Portsmouth game. I said Pascal will get 10 plus goals this season. We've looked a far bigger threat from corners in 3 games. Well, 2 in the league. Than we have all last season. We relied on the likes of Byram kind of arriving in late, where that's all good and well, but you're banging it to the back post without actually you're hoping for, you know, someone arriving there. But with the likes of Strike now and Rodon in there, I think Strike was very unlucky yesterday. The one that took a deflection was on the way into the bottom corner. What
really annoyed me about that one is they said that at that point, or about 5 minutes later, they said that nobody had a shot on target. But that was flying in.
That was going in. Like, there was no two ways about it. When you look at the camera angle from outside the 18-yard box, you can see it clear as day. It's going in. The keeper is absolutely rooted to the spot. And I think that's something that we need to work on as well, is the threat we do have when Pascal is in there from corners. We need to. Got man.
Smart is in the comments. He's in the trenches as well, telling somebody that Strike didn't get man at match for knitting fucking jumpers, did he?
No, he fucking didn't. And there's one particular comment by that I haven't seen Easy B in here before now, but welcome to the show either way. And like I said, you're all entitled to your opinion. Wow. Okay. Right. Okay. Then this is another one that is posted in. Easy B. You chaps don't recognise mediocrity when you see it. Have you?
And another one.
Yeah. Have you, like, honestly, mate? I get that you're entitled to your opinion, and I would never diss anyone for their opinion. But, like, you've seen what's gone on over the summer. You've seen the amount of influential players that have gone out the door. How else did do you expect us? I'd like you to comment on this. How else did you expect us to go into yesterday's game? How else? Like, there's no other way we could have gone into that game with the players that we've lost. No number 10. We've got players who are giving their all, but the formation isn't allowing it because we're going there to defend. I don't get how it's mediocrity to accept that at some point we're going to have to defend like that and we're going to have to play like that. I get it. Yeah, it's, you know, we've all been spoiled by Bielsa and every game was hammer and tongs and we were going at it. But I think we have to understand as football fans as well that not every coach plays like that. And not every coach is going to get you results the same way as Bielsa did. Yesterday we could have had 2 goals, both from corners, both from Pascal Stroke. We could have won that 2-0. But we would still be coming on here going, we've played really defensively, but, you know, we've got the win because we've worked on our set pieces. When we play like this, our set pieces need to be better. When we're playing like we're going forward all the time, set pieces, yeah, they need to be better, but we have more of an emphasis going forward. We played yesterday for the draw, and I think, you know, to say that we don't recognise mediocrity or whatever the comment was again, like, it's not mediocrity to accept that we're going to have to do that at the moment until players come in.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I just wanted to pop one up from Simon Tilbury because I don't want to ignore this point. Do you think the 49ers love this hate, meaning they could run with 100 million profit and sell out to Red Bull? I think that's one that we could speak to till the cows come home. It's one that we'll pick up on the main podcast. I didn't just want to ignore the point. We I think as fans, we all have certain expectations, and there's no getting away from the fact that those expectations currently are not being met. But equally, we'll be on here all day speaking to that one.
Yeah. Just one more from Easy B. It says Farke lost us those players. Somerville didn't turn up at Wembley. He did not turn up at Wembley. Like, if a manager loses you a player, but the player doesn't turn up for one of the biggest games of his career, whose fault is that? That can't be laid at the manager. He's given them a plan to go out and do something. If a player doesn't turn up for the biggest game of his career so far, that can't be laid at the manager for me.
Not entirely.
Not entirely.
There is a share because it's on the manager to also get the best out of the players available, isn't it? So, just one last point for me then. I think that when we were talking about the shape of the side and the personnel that we've got available to us, we've spoken to the fullbacks and the way that they like to attack. I don't think anybody would challenge the fact that from looking at Bogle and looking at Firpo, from an attacking sense, they're much stronger on the front foot than they are defensively. I don't think anybody would argue that point, but especially when our first choice midfielders are both DMs. Is there an argument to say, actually, Ampadu's dropping so deep anyway, why can't we start with all three of those playing at the back? We've still got a bit of defensive cover there at the moment with Verber. Whatever you think about him, he's a centre back. That's where he plays, we've got a little bit of cover there. But Ampadu playing so deep anyway. If you play with wing backs, you're playing to their strengths. You've got three defenders there that are all capable, more than capable of defending. You use Rodon's pace and Ampadu and Stroik's ball playing ability. It means you can bring Rothwell in and have him alongside Gruev. And we're talking, we're struggling to find the right 10. For me, Arrington's not the answer. For most people, Perot's not the answer. Does that give us a chance to play to the strengths? And actually what you can then do, all right, Dan James is always going to spread the play on the right. But what you can then do is ask Nonto to play inside. So he's playing in that channel, in that half space, between what you would, you spoke earlier on about getting paint on your boots as a winger. Fine. But if you've got good movement up front and Nonto's coming in off the wing, then is there something there that actually the 4-2-3-1 is too restrictive because we do the same every time? And actually this lends itself to the players that we have today, even if you can switch back because you bring in somebody that's strong on the wing.
You make a very good point, and all of that depends on who we bring in. All of what you've said basically is for me is that depending on who we bring in will determine how Farke will then alter how we play. Yeah. And we can sit here till the cows come home and just be like, yeah, I need to bring in this player and start playing that way. But will the player coming in suit how Farke wants to play as well? When he does want to revise how we attack, how we move forward, how we start to make those runs off the ball. I'm not saying Farke doesn't have confidence in the players that he has. He clearly has, because he set them up to be defensive yesterday and they were quite good doing it. I think it's a lot to do with who we bring in, essentially.
But I guess the question that I'm asking is, in the absence of incoming players, right now, with the strengths that our players have, is it better for us to adopt a different approach rather than the Farke 4-2-3-1 that he always plays with us? Rather than that, is potentially even a 3-4-3 that allows us to play to the strengths of the players that we have available in lieu of somebody coming in. Because anybody coming in is going to take a month, 6 weeks to get up to speed anyway. You know, unless even if they're coming from a side that's at our level and they've done the right pre-season and they've played the first couple of games this season, even if that's the case, you're still in a position where they've got to get used to the manager, they've got to get used to the players around them, they've got to get used to the patterns of play that we're trying to instill. So there's still some getting up to speed, even if the fitness is there. And it's unusual, really, for a player to come in and be at the level of fitness that a manager wants. So there's going to be a bit of tweaking there, probably.
Yeah.
But for me, it lends itself to the players and personnel that we have today. Because Ampadu's dropping that deep already, and that leaves only Gruev in midfield. Whereas if you're playing free at the back, he's there. We saw last season that he's perfectly capable of playing that deep. Because we went on the best run. You know, lots of moving targets on this element, lots of spinning plates and whatever else, however you want to put it. But during the period of the best form that we've been on for 90 plus years, he was at centre back. So is there an argument that says, look, play him at centre back and then have two midfielders as well, and then you've got Gruev and Rothwell? The only problem we've got with that is that only leaves Crew as cover. You've only got one midfield, and he's a child as cover. But you know, we're trying to scratch around to find a formation out of a squad that's so thin that you know, we've got Verba was actually on the bench, wasn't he? Because he were injured. So I don't know if there was ever even a plan that it might come on if needed. But we had Joffrey on the bench. Crew was on the bench. He's not played for the first team yet. De Bayo was in a competitive fixture. I know they've played friendlies. De Bayo was another one that. So we had. We didn't end up with two keepers on the bench because Verba was there. Without Verba being on the bench, we'd have had two keepers and two children that have never played for the first team. So, you know, we're not talking about a strong squad here, but it just feels like the personnel that we've got available to us right now lends itself to a different formation. And I think that's on Farke to try to find the best out of the personnel available to him right now. Incomings, great. If we buy two flying wingers, fantastic. If we get a 10, great. We don't have them now.
Yeah. And that's part of the problem when it comes to the formations that he's trying to play and the tactics that he's trying to do, is that we don't necessarily have those players where, like you said, Charlie Crew on the bench. We don't have someone that can come on and literally change a game for us with something special or magic at the moment. And that's no slight on the younger players. We just don't know how capable they are because they haven't played for us yet.
Yeah, absolutely that. I'm not right. I've been accused of writing them off. I'm absolutely not doing that. What I'm saying is it's dangerous to rely on kids that have never played professional minutes in the first team when they're the only option. If you know, and you know, Luke makes the point when I make that point. He makes the point that, well, Archie did last season. Fair, can't argue that. Archie's season was a marvel. It was miraculous. But that doesn't mean that every player is going to have that ability to just step in the first team and just be able to cope with the demands of professional football at this level and the demands of getting kicked about because technically you're a more proficient player than anybody you're playing against, like Archie and whatever else. It's
like, we don't know. Like, it might come a time during the season where Crew gets thrown in there because we have no other option, and he could absolutely light up the place. And we're all looking at him going, we've found another Archie Gray in the academy, and then there's all that pressure on him.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think he needs to be coaxed into it rather than just going, right, we're short now. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here, 5 minutes here. Then if we're short, at least we've seen him over the space of, I don't know, 45 minutes over a number of games. And then you have the confidence in him to go, right, okay, look, you've done a job over these periods of time. Now you're going to get thrown in there because we're short, and show us what you can do. And I think we got. I think Archie Gray was a different scenario. We all had these expectations of him. We all knew how good he was. I don't know if I haven't seen a lot of Crew in the under-23s by any means. But I'll definitely be making more of an effort to try and watch the under-23 games so I can see what he's like and make a better judgment call. But again, we only see that. We don't see him in training. So Farke could be thinking, geez, this lad is well capable. But you have to manage him as well. You
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
Archie was around the squad at 15. You know, this is his first breakthrough season into the squad. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you know, Archie
And
had two and a bit years on him around first team players, first team environment, everything like, and he got his odd
still couldn't
minutes
get
here and
changed
there.
with the first team
Yeah,
at the start of the season last season. It's mad to think that, isn't it? Still,
yeah, that's the thing. Like,
but you know,
so
you look at the way that Foden is one of the best attacking players, maybe in the world at the moment. Certainly playing in one of, if not the best teams in the world at the moment. And if you look at the way that he was introduced to the team, it took years for him to get a starting berth consistently and regularly. Now, that's a very different scenario and a very different player. But ultimately, you've got to be so careful with the young players coming in because there is a potential that you can ruin the careers if you get it wrong at that time. And I think, you know, you look at Cook, Taylor, Byram to a certain extent, Mowat. You know, we all thought that there were massive things coming for them. And let's be fair, they've had decent careers in the main. You know, and I think maybe not Mowat, but most of them have been Premier League players without Leeds. So, you know, it's not that they weren't capable. I think capability on a different level to Archie Gray. And I think he is destined for big things as long as his new club don't ruin him. But we're in that position where the expectation, because, you know, I've reeled off a few names there, but the expectation is that, right, okay, well, there's a youth player coming through and he's in the first team, so he's going to be a Premier League player. And that's really dangerous because, you know, look at Leo Kjelder. A lot of people rated him. I didn't. And you know, where's he gone? What's he going to do? I don't think he's going to be a Premier League player. You look at, who was it that went to Barnsley? Centre back. That's another one starts with H.
oh yeah, Mikel or that.
No, not the one that when he was in front of Pascal.
Yeah, I don't think what you're on about. Yeah,
and you know, where is he? The fact I can't remember his name doesn't speak well.
It was Finnish, wasn't he?
No. He's only 28.
Only 28.
Like 28. So, you know, just because they're coming through into the first team doesn't mean they're going to make it. And that's the point, isn't it? You can't rely on them being great players because not everybody's going to turn out to be an Archie Gray or a Lewis Cook, a Sam Byram. You know, some of them will not make it. You know, some of them will be a Leo Kjelder. You know, there are others, and you know, let's not go into that too much and be too negative with it to the end. But I think it is one of those where he needs some players talking around it, and I can't just go sign some fucking players.
Yeah, and on that note, just sign some fucking players, will you?
Yeah, pretty much. Anything else to add, Carl, before we go? Let these people get on with their weekends.
I don't particularly know. I just I like some of the comments they were going in today. They were giving us some good talking points. Easy B, even though we may have banged heads there a little bit, fair play to you. It's nice to get a bit of a controversial opinion here and there, and we do appreciate that. But
absolutely,
I don't know. I heard without going into transfer business, I heard Leicester, Wolves, and now Ipswich are looking at Rowe as well as us and Marseille. So unless we go in with, yeah, like the longer we left that going, the more that was going to happen. So yeah. But apart from that, no, I've nothing really else to cover there. If I'm being perfectly honest, I thought, you know, good solid point away from home with a team and squad clearly low on confidence going off losing 4 of the most influential players from last season's first 11. So it's the way it goes.
That's it. I said started with H. Halme.
That's the one.
Yeah, that's the one.
Absolutely. Well done, dude, on the fence.
Yeah. So just the last point for me then. The Andy's Man Club Leeds. There is a running club. Just as a reminder, there's a running club on Wednesday evenings. Meet at 5:45 for 6 p.m. start. Meet at 5 Ways at the Recovery Academy on Westfield Road in Woodhouse. Pool night you missed. It was Friday. I hope you had a good night. And there is a walk on the 15th of September, walking 7 miles in honour for Rob Burrow around here Moortown in the shape of a rhino, which is pretty cool. So get yourself down there. Meeting at Roundy Park Gates on Princes Avenue at 10:30 for an 11 a.m. start. So feel free to join them in celebration of a hero. Thank you very much, everybody, for getting involved in the comments. As Carl says, it gives us a bit of an impetus and a bit of things to talk about. Sometimes argues with our points, sometimes agrees with our points, but it'd be boring if everybody agreed all the time, wouldn't it? So,
well, that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Thank you very much, Carl. If I don't see you through week, I'll see you through window and in the group chat.
Absolutely. See you later.
Oh shit! Hang on. I was going to click end stream. I don't want end stream. I want to go outro.